Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us here on the Infinite Prosperity Podcast. My name is Louisa Havers, and I help high achievers, entrepreneurs, and coaches lift the lid on life and business so that they can live at their highest value. Each episode, we will bring you our favourite founders, CEOs, and guest experts to share with you their insights and strategies to expand your wealth consciousness, your spiritual leadership, and aligned business strategies. We know that living in alignment with your soul's mission is what fulfills you, and we are here to show you how to achieve this in an energetically aligned way. If you haven't already, be sure to claim your free abundance activation in the Akashic Records. Go to louisahavers.com/gift to unlock your abundance activation today. And if you'd like my support in having aligned success in life and business, then contact me at www.louisahavers.com and let's explore together if it's an aligned match. Get ready to live at your highest value and to expand into your next level of money as you elevate and receive more. You create more for others. Righty-ho, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode. I am so excited. I am joined by Chris March. Welcome, Chris.
Welcome. Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, it's wonderful that we can connect like this, isn't it? I just love that. You're not based, where are you based at the moment?
I'm based in Toronto, Canada. I do have a funny accent. I'm originally from Australia, but I've called Canada home for the last 15 years. So I'm a proud Canadian Australian.
I love it. I love it. Both places are on my list to visit again. Just phenomenal countries. So before we dive in, I just wanted to, because you've got an incredible background, and would love just to give everyone a little sneak peek by sharing your bio. You've already mentioned that you are a Canadian Australian. You've got a global travel experience, over 20 years experience. You've lived, Australia, UK, Canada, traveled to 72 countries. Is that a
Yes.
record breaker? I feel like that might be.
No, it's certainly above the average for sure. But working in the travel industry, I've been afforded a lot of great opportunities. And moving into the travel industry, typically you're passionate about travel. So that's really where that comes from. And I'm fortunate to be with a lot of friends in the industry that have been to a lot more countries than I have. But I'm grateful for all the opportunities that I have. And there's still so much I want to see. So much.
Oh, wow. I have to ask you, what's your favorite one apart from Canada and Australia? If there was another, what out of those 72? I'm
It's
gonna put it
such
on my list.
a it's such a great question. It depends. From a city perspective, one of my favorite cities in the world is New York. I've
Mm.
been 15 times and I'm actually going back in April for my birthday. I just love the energy. And until you've been to New York, it's really hard to explain the energy you feel when you go to New York and the vibe, the food, the restaurants, the culture. It's just, I get a certain energy and feel when I'm in New York, which is just incredible. And I haven't felt that in too many other cities. I also love London. I was fortunate to live in London for a couple of years, and it's a rite of passage for an Australian having that similar culture as well. So those two really stand out for me from a country perspective. I really enjoy Spain and Italy, just their way of life. They really they live to live, not work to live. And I really enjoy that. They really emphasize family, food, and just enjoying life. And I think that's just really practical and really just such a great way to live.
Oh, it really is. Oh, I love it. Absolutely love it. I'm pleased to hear that Spain's on the list too, because I'm just about to move to Spain for a couple of months. So that's so exciting.
Oh, that
So
sounds all right.
I know, I know. So that's a really diverse experience you've had. And then with all that experience,
Mhm.
you've moved into, you had a managerial role. And I know that you've done so much with leadership. So how did you, through the leadership you had within those companies, then start to do the business that you've got today?
Yeah, so leadership is something that I've always really resonated with. I saw it really early on, the profound effect that leadership had on an organization when there was effective leadership. And growing up, I saw it in sports as well. My dream growing up was to be professional basketball player. I didn't quite make it, played semi-pro, and just the leadership that I saw and the people that I looked up to through those avenues really just embodied to me how powerful leadership is. And as I continued to get more and more experience, I really just gravitated towards helping people on their leadership journey as well. So as I become more proficient with leadership and ultimately was fortunate to live in many different places, and then during the pandemic, working in the travel industry, and that's where all my travel experience comes from, the world was grounded in 2020, as we
Mm.
may recall. We lost those 2 years. I think everyone kind of feels that way. And the whole world was grounded, and
Yeah.
we had to lay off 90% of our staff at that point, which was excruciating. Excruciating just to put that into perspective. And we were told, even as a senior leader myself, we were told to seriously start considering plan Bs at that point. So I went into my toolbox, and fortunate I was living by myself, had a lot of spare time, and just asked those questions of my friends, family, colleagues, and said, what do I do really well? If you would ask me what would I do next, and everything kind of gravitated towards helping people and the helping services. So I landed on coaching
Mm.
and enrolled in a coaching program through Jay Shetty, which you're probably familiar with being in the UK. He's
Yes.
big in the UK, and did his course and started coaching anyone and everyone who would listen and give me the opportunity at that point. As you know, when you're first starting out, we all go through this as entrepreneurs. I'll work for free. I'll do a testimony, just give me a testimonial in
Mm.
return. And it's been an incredible journey. It's been 2 years in February.
Congratulations. That's phenomenal to be able to. It's a reinvention of yourself effectively from that period in COVID, like you were saying, how the world just stopped. It was the most extraordinary thing for everybody to kind of witness, and industries just decimated overnight. I don't think anyone could have ever sort of anticipated that level of impact on people's career paths and purposes and way of life. Uh, Huge.
It's huge. And I feel there was a lot of sadness that came out of the pandemic, and it forced people to be a little bit more uncomfortable where they
Mm.
lost the opportunity or lost their career. And we tie so much into our titles and careers and so forth as well that we identify with that. And then it pushed people to go into their own plan B or to do their own side hustle, which has ended up being something beautiful, something that they may not have done. And with the pandemic as well, we've got different set of challenges, the hybrid environment, the virtual environment as well, and the ability to spend more time with family, which I think is huge and beneficial to all of us.
I couldn't agree more. I remember my sons actually reflecting to me that that was the one of the things that they really took away from the pandemic was
Mm,
really valuing family.
hmm
And I feel very blessed to have had them with me at that period of time, because I know that, that they're early 20s. I was out clubbing all the time. I barely saw my parents.
I
So, I feel very lucky that that they might not have had such fun, but to have been able to have walked away with from that experience with the recognition of how important family is.
hmm
There is a kind of gift, isn't there, in all obstacles that come our way. I love that you're focusing on leaders. I think certainly from my own experience with it as an entrepreneur and through my background with leading large teams in social services, leadership is everything. It really is. I think it's the key aspect for people in terms of whether they're going to have a successful business or not, in terms of how they lead themselves and lead team members. One of the things that comes up a lot with the clients I talk to and our community members, I'd love to hear your reflections on this, was, that piece around so many high achievers can ultimately end up burning out because they end up on that sort of either corporate hamster wheel or the entrepreneurial
mm,
hamster wheel, because
yeah.
they're leading with their hearts, they're wanting to do good things. So how can we avoid burnout? How can leaders balance the demands of their professional and their personal life for for the sustainable success that everyone desires to have?
It's a great question. And I think we've all been part of this where the hustle culture, this was like a badge of honor to be working 50, 60 hours in the week, working on weekends and so forth as well. And I think, again, the pandemic was instrumental in recognizing that as well and created a bit of a shift. And I think we've also realized the importance of our health during this as well. And nothing more is more important than your health at the end of the day. And recognizing that you've got to be able to lead yourself first before you can lead others. That is really important. So recognizing what works for you. And I think it really comes down to setting clear boundaries. Boundaries aren't limiting, they're liberating.
Oh, I love
It's
that.
making sure that you're setting clear boundaries with your team and setting clear expectations when it comes to your availability as well. And making sure that you're communicating something. If you're communicating something over and over again, it means you're on the right path. And taking care of yourself, recognizing what works for your own self-care and what fills your cup. Maybe it's at that stage in your life mentioning going clubbing or reading a book or going traveling or just relaxing on the weekend and doing something you feel passionate about, going catching up for coffee, brunch, whatever that is. Make sure that you recognize when your battery is half full or at 10% and work towards putting yourself in a better position. Make sure you plan vacations in advance. Just the little things I think really helps as well. But I think a big part of it is setting those clear boundaries around availability for yourself and your team.
That's so true. And I think it's something that people can really struggle with, the boundaries, particularly when you're working from home, because you can, if you haven't got like a clear space where you're working, the kitchen table is also your office. You've
Hmm.
got your work kind of winking at you as you're off to try and make your spaghetti or whatever it might be as you're you're cooking
Hold
in
on,
the evening.
hold on.
Yeah.
And I think it's a great point you bring up. I think it's important for you to have a space. Is your space clear? Is it professional? Is it a separated space from where you're not looking at the coffee maker or dinner and so forth as well? Is it productive? Is it going to allow you to perform at your best at all times? Really challenge yourself in that environment and see what's working for you and what's not.
Yeah, that's so true. I feel like everyone listening is going to be glancing around their rooms at the
Yeah, be like, oh,
moment, doing a quick check. So building on this actually, because this is something, and certainly, I have a remote team in that, well, my son
mhm.
works with us as well, so he's actually in the next door room, so that's not very far away.
Hello.
My other he'll be editing this. My other son is in Portsmouth, and he does some stuff for us as well.
Mhm,
And then we have a team member over in the Philippines, and so
mhm,
as leaders, navigating that, managing remote teams, and we used to call it agile working in the corporate
mhm,
world, where suddenly people went from being in the office to this revelation that you could actually work from home. And it is very different being able to lead when you are in an office space and you've got the culture kind of all around you, to leading remote teams. From your perspective, and what you're seeing, how do you see leaders can effectively both manage and motivate remote teams?
mm. I think it reminds me of a statistics that I shared this week, or maybe it was last week. I wrote a post. I wrote consistently on LinkedIn, and I
Mm.
shared 9 statistics that'll shock you in leadership. And there was statistics, I don't remember who it was by, but saying that 27% of leaders, I think it was DDI, 27% of leaders believe that they are very effective in leading virtual or hybrid teams. 27%.
That that only that? Oh God.
Correct.
Wow.
So, yeah, it's compelling. And I think the important distinction here is to recognize that what your leadership may have been in the full office environment needs to change. Your leadership style has to adapt with the environment that you're in. So I
Absolutely.
think that's the key distinction that you have. And I think it really comes back to communicating the medium that you're communicating with as well. How often are you creating opportunities for feedback? How often are you creating opportunities for water cooler situations? Do you remember those opportunities that you have within the office where you come into the office and you see your people and you have a conversation and have those opportunities? What can you do that to facilitate that within virtual environment as well? And making sure that you're praising in public and providing feedback in private as well. So
Mm.
there's a lot of different things that you need to be cognizant of. And I think a lot of times we get into the habit of sending emails or firing things off through Teams and so forth. And we forget about when we're receiving something, it's always in the interpretation of the receiver. So when you're sending something, really fixate on what is the outcome that I'm trying to get from this conversation? What is the best way? I know every second and dollar and time throughout the days is valuable. Really slow down and think about how can I best communicate this?
That's so wise, so wise. Because that, like you say, people are receiving, we don't know what is going on in their world and how they're going to
Yeah.
be receiving it necessarily. So if there's like a slight edge with the sender and then there's something going on with the receiver, and then you've just got a recipe for a clash, and you haven't got the water cooler to be able to kind of cool off with to reconnect.
To that point, I've worked with many clients recently who have had issues with that conflict resolution because the sender is the leader that I'm working with is saying they're not getting it, they're not understanding what I'm trying to say.
Mm.
But I'm like, how are you delivering the communication? Is it clear? Coming when I hear that clear is kind with your communication, Brene Brown. Is it is it able, are they able to hear it, what you're saying from their perspective?
Yes, yes, that's exactly it. It's being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes
Hmm.
to be able to do that. Yeah, this is really thought provoking. The piece about the water cooler aspect,
Hmm.
because we use Slack, and often I think that that is great way to be able to have those kind of softer conversations. That I hadn't thought of it being like a water cooler, but that's effectively how we can use it.
Hmm.
I know there's other, uh, communication tools and stuff like that, but I do think it's an incredible way to just really recognize that piece that you were saying about how important that those conversations are. Just getting
Hmm.
to know each other when you're haven't got the opportunity to go for a quick cup of coffee. You've got to make it in a more creative way, haven't you?
Yeah, or you can create virtual different events that try and build the camaraderie and the team building as well. I hear a lot of companies that do virtual drinks on Friday. They wrap up the week. They just get together and just share reflections on the week to wrap up. Cheers to each other. And it's a great way just to see each other and have a great weekend. What are your wins this week? What did you learn? And you're tying in a bit of social with a bit of reflection and learning to help move the business forward as well. And I think that's effective.
Beautiful. Yeah, beautiful. From your perspective, because conversations that we used to have a lot of the time when I cast my mind back into my corporate days was around the difference between leaders and managers, and really wanting leaders to be more like coaches. And we had a whole
Yes.
coaching program, and that's how I got into coaching actually, because I was one of the leaders on the coaching program in social services. I loved it. I was like, this is incredible. So,
Hmm.
from your perspective, how can leaders be more coach-like?
A great question. I hosted a live event last week talking about how I strongly believe with another coach that I work with consistently that the coaching leadership style is the style of the future. People don't want to be told what to do. They want to, it's not about controlling your people, it's about empowering people. And I really feel that we're in this really significant change in the landscape professionally where we need leaders to be more coach-like. And simple things, and a really great resource that you want to look at is a book by Michael Bungray Stainer called The Coaching Habits. It focuses on 7 questions that can allow you to be more coach-like by asking these simple questions. in your one-on-one meetings, such as what's on your mind, asking thought-provoking, open-ended questions. And it's really a great read. I've read it a couple of times myself, and it's all about asking those 7 thought-provoking questions. And this is not easy to do. Let me firstly say, I'm sure you feel the same way as well. As leaders, we feel, or as managers, we feel we have to know all the answers. And we always, innately as humans, we want to tell people what our thoughts are. We always know best. But if you can hold that back, allow people to have space to come up with the answers themselves, and then you can help empower them to move them forward.
Mm. Makes your life so much easier as a leader to be able to help to empower your team to do that. I remember we used to have conversations. There was this weird sort of some people used to do this. It'd be interesting to see if you ever noticed this, where managers would not want to appoint somebody who is better than them at something because they would see it as a challenge. And I always used to think, no, I want my team to be the best at everything. It's going to make my life easier and I can
Mm,
learn from them and I can lead. I can truly lead. It's not about knowing,
mhm.
being able to be the expert in their roles. Is that something you've ever come across through all the organizations that you've worked with?
Yeah, I think people are threatened by people that have different strengths, but I think it comes back to, do you have a growth mindset? Recognizing that you have the ability to learn, and the best leaders make leaders. That's what it comes down to. There's things that I'm great at. I know that I'm great at. There's also a lot of things that I'm not good at as well. So I want to be surrounded by the people that are going to help lift me up. And as a leader, if you're really thinking about leadership in its true essence, is that you're only as good as your team, and you'll only be measured on your team's results. So don't be afraid that people are better than you at certain things. It's going to make you a better team.
That's so true. Yeah, I absolutely love that. I think it, and this is part of the skills of recognizing as people are leading, whether they are, leading large corporate teams or,
Hmm.
as an entrepreneur, suddenly hiring their first VA. VA is normally often the first person that you
Yes.
might hire, and recognizing that they need to be in their leadership energy as I call it when they are delegating tasks, not abdicating responsibility, with their team members, and then of course it grows from that, and it completely starts to, we need to require more of ourselves as leaders as our team grows, for sure.
Hmm.
With the entrepreneurs that you work with and the clients that you work with, what kind of sizes of teams do they have? Are they smaller teams, large teams? Do you get a mishmash?
It's really a mishmash. The last group that I worked with was a recreational club in Australia. I worked with their middle managers, helping them to round out 2023 and just set them up for success in for the year ahead, to help to identify what they need to work on as individuals, as leaders, and also to help move their goals as well. And it was quite interesting to see, because a lot of the people that I worked with, they were younger leaders in their 20s, and they weren't really familiar what coaching was and what the value was. And I could see that they really were hesitant and struggling with it at first. But as we went through the process, and as you know, as a coach yourself, you peel back the layers, you peel back, and you find what they wanted to talk about at the original offset can tend to deviate to so many different things throughout all the multiple sessions, as you know, as well. And I think that's just the power of coaching, where working with tandem with someone is just incredibly powerful.
It really is. Oh, that's incredible. That's incredible. One of the questions I do, just to segue a bit, but I would love to get
Hmm.
your take on this. I ask everybody this question because we talk about infinite prosperity here, and all the multiple facets of that. What
Hmm.
I'd love to know, Chris, what does prosperity mean to you?
Hmm. It's a great question. And I think it's different for everyone. I think it's very multifaceted, as you said. And I feel prosperity, it's an abundance mentality, aligning with what it is that's going to find you prosperity. For some people, it may be fulfilling. in terms of their professional career, or it may be monetary in terms of I want to make X amount of money to provide the life for my family, or it could be just as simple as I want to have a certain well-being or self-care element to that as well. So prosperity is an ongoing process, I would say, and it's really a journey of finding that fulfillment in those different aspects of your life that you're working towards.
Yeah, I love that. I think you're absolutely right that so often I talk to people about their wealth consciousness, and of
Mhm.
course that's a key part of prosperity. But and within that conversation always comes up that piece around fulfillment. And I think we want ultimately we want that trifecta of prosperity, you know, to be able to be prosperous in our health, prosperous in our love and our relationships and our family life,
Mhm.
and then of course within the wealth aspect as well. You know, we want it all to be
Yeah, we want the abundance, right? We want everything. We're human beings. We want everything. We want success.
absolutely. And it's you know, it's just incredible. We are such incredible creative creatures to be able to be on this planet and to be being in that space where we can ultimately create what we want to create. And it's just our beautiful minds that get in the way.
We just got to get out of our own way. I think to our point, I think that's one of the biggest things that we got to learn to overcome is the self and our mind.
Yeah, so true. So just to wrap things up, you've talked about so much in terms of leadership that people can take away. But what would you say are, so you might have touched on these already, but it will just kind of bring it together for
Mhm.
everybody. What are the sort of three tips that you would want leaders who are listening to walk away with?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think for leadership, it's really important to understand how to lead yourself and what works for you. What I mean by that is typically you're going to have a mentor or someone that you look up to. Really focus on those attributes, but make it your own. Each of us are unique, but really model yourself on a certain way that is going to be unique to who you are. And I think it's one of the things that I wish I would have done earlier on is show more vulnerability as a leader. So a lot of the times we have this veil where when we step into leadership for the first time, you've got to be a certain way or you've got to model a certain type of behavior. Your vulnerability builds strength.
Mm,
And to build on the statistics that I shared a couple of weeks ago on LinkedIn is that leaders who show vulnerability are likely to be trusted 5.3 times more by their team just by being vulnerable. And I think the reason why that resonates so much is because we're in this time where people are showing the highlight reels when it comes to Instagram, TikTok, and so forth as well. I think that's a little bit overplayed, and people really want to resonate more with authenticity. And you as a leader really need to lean into that and just be vulnerable. If you don't know something, say it. If you made a mistake, own it. Be
mm,
accountable to it and really just recognize that there's nothing wrong with being truly vulnerable and showing who you are. I think a lot of people want to be the person they are during the week and then a different person on the weekends. There are elements of that. Just lean into that. And lastly, the great leaders are people who are always learning,
mm.
learn, read, do courses and so forth as well. But make sure it's great to read 50 books or set X amount of goals. Make sure you're taking action. The key part of that is taking action. So really be focused on being a learner and taking the action from what you learn.
I love it. So much wisdom there. Thank you so much. Chris, how can people find you? I know you've got a gift as well for people to tell us all the things. Where can I come and find you, and how can they receive your gift?
Yes, so the best way to get in contact with me is via LinkedIn. I post 5 to 6 times a week there, sharing leadership. I write about leadership, coaching, peak performance. So you can check me out there. I've also recently launched a newsletter, which is really about compiling the best insights that I've found over the years and anything really relevant right now when it comes to leadership. every Sunday. I share that. It's quick, it's actionable, it takes under 3 minutes to read. So I know you're going to include the link to the newsletter as well. Feel free to check that out. And that's my gift to everyone. And I hope you find value in that.
That's huge. Thank you so much. Yeah, I was checking that out and I was like, oh, that's amazing. So I highly recommend everyone gets themselves onto your newsletter so that they can receive that gift. Thank you so much, Chris, for your time and wisdom that you've shared today.
Thank you for having me. It's been great. Look forward to it next time.
Yeah, please do come back. This is a kind of a huge conversation that we could continue having. So we'll have to get you back on the show again for round 2 at some point.
Thank you so much. It's been a blast.
Thank you. And thank you everyone for listening. Until next time, sending you all lots and lots of love. Thanks for listening to the Infinite Prosperity Podcast. And if you like what you've heard and want to know more, please go to louisahavers.com. We just appreciate you so much. So thank you for listening and hanging out with us. If there's anything that we can do for you, you can email us at louisa@louisahavers.com. Let my team know if you have any ideas for shows that you'd love to hear or topics you want me to talk about. Really looking forward to hearing from you. All right, that is it for this week, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for today. Looking forward to connecting with you again. Until next time, namaste.